back. We are live. It's a good day. It is a beautiful Tuesday. Very rainy Tuesday, but my plants needed some rain, so I'm happy about that. Well, y'all, we got a lot to get to. And I said yesterday it was 60 Afrikaner-lizers. That is the phrase I'm using to describe the white South Africans who decided to front like they was refugees, getting off the plane looking very well fed, very portly, thick in the body, if you know what I mean. And this ain't about body shape. I'm just like, damn, what kind of refugee plan was y'all on? Y'all good. You look well fed. And then the Financial Times had some shade. It was like, they got off of that plane with 6 pieces of luggage. Child, they sure did. But we got a lot to get into this morning. And so we might as well start at the beginning. Now, while as much as I want to troll the Afrikaner-lizers, and I'm calling them Afrikaner-lizers because Afrikaner is how white South Africans are. That's what they're called, Afrikaners, not to be confused, as I said earlier, with Africans. And so the Afrikaners, I feel like, y'all are actually colonizers. And so I feel like Afrikaner-lizer is how I'm just going to refer to them. I got to work on the accent, as I said, so we'll figure it out. But as much as I want to talk about them, I really want to start with what is going to be most important to those of us who are here, who need healthcare. Actually, this is going to be pretty important to the Afrikaner-lizers as well, because they came here as refugees thinking they was going to get free shit. And they did get off that private plane because they got a private charter jet, honey, a private plane. And I think they thought they was going to end up here getting healthcare. But since Medicaid is about to get cut for everybody, the Afrikaner-lizers might end up making their way back to South Africa, where they will actually have a chance of getting healthcare. That matters, because yesterday, the congressional Republicans was like, I know the American people really do need their health care, but God damn it, elongated muskrat and the other billionaires like Jeff Bezos who own us and bought our elections for us, they are going to need them tax cuts to be permanent. Because remember, back in 2017, when y'all's president the first time was in office and he passed them tax cuts, that basically was a $1.9 trillion tax cut. It was a 10-year situation. I'm sorry, it was supposed to go for, was it 2017 or 2016? Point being, they passed a permanent, they wanted it to be permanent. They could not make it permanent because they didn't have enough money in the budget. And they ain't got enough money in the budget because Americans ain't got enough money in our pockets, in our budgets, and in our wallets, and our taxes. So they gave these billionaires a 1.9 trillion with the T dollar tax cut. And then the billionaires was like, don't you worry, we're going to do everything we need to do in order to make these tax cuts permanent. And we're going to make sure that we get all of the politicians and elected officials to do so with us. I don't know why billionaires in America got a British accent. It's, again, something to do with colonization and the history, but it is what it is. Anyway, Representative Greg Landsman posted yesterday, congressional Republicans dropped their bill to cut health care for millions of Americans. And that's exactly what happened, because we told y'all there was no way for them to make these tax cuts for the millionaires and the billionaires permanent. And again, those tax cuts end December 31st of this year. There's no way for them to make those tax cuts permanent if they didn't cut things like Head Start, like free lunch and free school programs and the free education programs and the Department of Education and the Department of Transportation. Sean Duffy, we got something for you too. Don't you worry, you little ding dong. We got something for you in charge of the FAA. But basically, according to Congressman Greg Landsman, if this budget passes, and it's an if, because if y'all do the work, it won't pass. But let's see. If this budget passes, he says at least 13.4 million Americans are going to lose their health care. Now, some of the estimates are far above that, but a minimum of 13.4 million Americans will lose their health care. That includes your mom and your pap who's in the nursing home. Keep in mind that Medicare covers approximately 60% of Medicaid covers approximately 60% of nursing home residents, which means that even if your mima and your pap do not require a government support for their healthcare system in order for them to pay in the nursing home, they're going to pay a whole lot more in the nursing home because they're not going to be subsidized by the people who's getting governmental support. 13.4 million people losing their healthcare, he says, is catastrophic. This is families, children, and seniors. They will also cut $715 billion in healthcare funding. Now, here's what the Republicans are going to say. They're going to say, we are not cutting billions of dollars in healthcare funding. The Democrats are just lying, because that's what the Democrats do. They just lying liars who lie. Remember, with the Republicans, every accusation is projection. What they're doing is they're saying that the budget or that the commission that manages Medicaid and Medicare, the commission has to cut almost $800 billion out of its budget. The only thing is that the only way that the commission could cut almost $800 billion out of its budget is to cut the services that Medicaid provides. So they want to cut the commission. The Republicans are going to act like that's a distinction with a difference. My friends, I assure you, it is a distinction. It makes absolutely no difference, because what's going to end up happening is your ma'am and your pap going to be back at the house with you, because that's the other thing that happens when you have families who are in nursing home facilities. facilities and your Medicaid situation run out, you know what they do? They go to the next of kin. They go to the family members and they take from the family members by force money out your check, money out your bank account. If you live in a state that's got familial care laws, baby, next in family bloodline gonna be next in the payment line because you're gonna have to pay for ma'am, and pat to be in that spot. So in addition to cutting out from the healthcare system, he says that when you take that much from the healthcare system, hospitals close, doctors close their practices, and people lose access to healthcare. That is what happens when you cut off that much money in healthcare. He says it makes it even harder for states to pay for the care at the hospitals, the nursing homes, and the facilities that support people with intellectual disabilities. He says hospitals, nursing homes, care facilities all rely heavily on Medicaid funding, and state budgets can't cover it all. That's the challenge. When they're cutting all of these things at the federal level, they're telling the states, well, just figure it out. You got it, figure it out. So the state governors are going to have to work with the state legislators to figure out what can they take from their budget to fill in the massive gaps that the Fed left them thanks to elongated muskrat and the Doji boys. According to Congressman Greg Landsman, he also says that these cuts will raise the cost of the visit to the doctor for low-income people, particularly those who make less than $16,000 a year. I don't know if I need to tell you, maybe I should because of the Afrikaner-lizers who are now here. $16,000 a year is poverty. That's like abject, total, complete poverty. If you're making less than that, your Medicare costs are going to go up. He says that they are actively making our healthcare system more expensive for people who are already struggling. It is cruel. And yes, he's correct. It is absolutely cruel, but it's absolutely in line with what Republicans have said they wanted to do from time immemorial. So this is who they are. He also says it makes it more difficult for low-income people to get on and keep their Medicaid because now there's all this extra rules. There's all this extra paperwork. They're making work requirements they're also implementing work requirements, which means if you live in a state that has no unemployment, basically you're gonna have to get a job. If you currently right now getting Medicaid or Medicare, you're going to have to get a job. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, Lurie, there's really nothing wrong with making people work if they want to have access to healthcare. The challenge is that, one, I believe you should have access to healthcare whether you have a job or not. Two, they're only doing this so that the billionaires who don't actually work, they just make money slaving all the rest of us so that they make money. So you don't have a problem with people getting access to things without working. You just don't want the poor people getting access to things without working. They're going to implement job requirements, but at the same time, they're cutting access to education and they cut access to apprenticeship programs. And a lot of y'all's cousins said that woman wasn't black enough and you didn't want her apprenticeship programs. You didn't want her programs for entrepreneurs. So there ain't no supports for the entrepreneurs and the apprenticeships. And since they already cut education, half of us don't qualify for these jobs anyway. Ask the Afrikaner-lizers. They should help with that. He also goes on to say it is going to cut funding for reproductive health care and Planned Parenthood. This is who Republicans are. There's no surprise there. It's going to get rid of the rules that require a minimum number of nurses at nursing homes, which means that the ratio of patients to nurses is going to explode. Right now, there is a requirement that X amount of residents who would live in the nursing home have to have access to X amount of nurses. But according to the Republicans, damn your grandma and your pap, you don't need that. You could just die waiting for the one nurse who's going to be working 3 floors to get back to you to change your bedpan, which you've been needed to have changed for the past 2 days. According to the congressman, nursing homes are already severely understaffed. This will hurt seniors and the families who rely on the facilities. Why are they doing these cuts? Asked the congressman. They need to find money. I told y'all. I need to find money to pay for their tax cuts to the uber wealthy and the corporate investors. That's a direct quote. He says they're taking healthcare from millions and millions of Americans to make elongated muskrat, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and all the people who are already pimping your data and going to get to pimp a whole lot of it now that elongated muskrat has gotten all the data from the federal government, basically to make them richer. You don't need healthcare. Pray about it. You know what they say? Pray about it. You don't need healthcare. But what you could also do is if you do like your healthcare, call your congressional representatives because this is probably going to have a lot. I shouldn't say that. There are some who believe that this might have an easier chance of passing in the House than it does in the Senate because you have people like Josh Hawley, who is a senator in a state of Missouri, where basically, even though he is down for the January 6ers, he also realizes that in Missouri, which is one of the 40 states that expanded Medicaid, basically they have too many people in Missouri, white people, white Americans, and not the white Afrikaners, too many people in Missouri who actually rely on Medicaid. He goes on to talk about this in an op-ed that he put out in the New York Times. He says, Mr. Trump has This is the what is his name? Josh Hawley. Mr. Trump has promised working class tax cuts and protection for working class social insurance, such as Medicaid. But now a noisy contingent of corporatist Republicans, call it the party's Wall Street wing, is urging Congress to ignore all that and get back to the old time religion, corporate giveaways, preferences for capital, and deep cuts to social insurance. Now, I know Josh Hawley is from the South. He's from Missouri, but he went to very elite schools. And so he talks a little snooty like someone who went to Harvard. No shade against Harvard. I got a lot of friends who went to Harvard. Shout out to y'all, but it's a little snooty the way y'all talk. He goes on to talk about the fact that this wing of the party wants Republicans to build our big, beautiful bill around slashing health insurance for the working poor. But that argument is both morally wrong and politically suicidal. Now, he's saying it's politically suicidal because he's going to lose his next election. He's going to lose his next election if they get rid of Medicaid. Why? Because Medicaid, he says, is a federal program providing health care to low-income Americans in partnership with state governments. It covers 70 million Americans, 70 million Americans, including well over 1 million residents of Missouri, the state I represent. He says in Missouri, which is one of the 40 Medicaid expansion states, that 20%, 21% of people who live in Missouri benefit from Medicaid or CHIP. That's the other thing. A lot of y'all don't think you on Medicaid because you on some state level program. You on like CHIP or like Kansas Cares for Kids or like Wyoming Wishes You Well. You on all these state level programs and you don't know that that program is called Medicaid, but that's sort of like the white people who didn't want access to the Affordable Care Act because it was called Obamacare. But as soon as you told them that it was the Affordable Care Act and it was their government sponsored healthcare, they loved it. It was amazing. You told them what was in Obamacare, they loved it, said it was phenomenal, but they didn't like it because the black man gave it to them. And so here we are. But basically, Josh Hawley and other Republicans in the Senate are like, what we can't do is this. And so there is a question about whether or not the Republicans are going to actually listen to their voters, and that might not actually happen because they have been bought and paid for by the wealthy, but you have to try. And so we have a power work assignment. You need to download the 5 Calls app. It's called 5 Calls app. 5 Calls app. Download the 5 Calls app. It would allow you to automatically connect with your elected officials. It will provide you scripts for how you can communicate with them and talk to them about how you feel about these issues. Call them and let them know absolutely the fuck not should you be balancing our budget by taking healthcare from millions of American people who actually need it. That's what's happening with Medicare. But there's another Medicaid. There's another thing that you're going to have to call your elected officials about. We got a lot of power work assignments today. According to some of the reports, we are now in a situation where they are attempting to insert legislation in the existing budget bill. So that budget bill I just told you about, the budget reconciliation bill, that's basically going to take healthcare from everybody that you know and love. In that bill, which is about the budget, they are also trying to insert a provision that will provide a, quote, potential ban on any regulation for AI for the next 10 years. That includes bills like AB 412, which is legislation that protects people from deep fakes. So like when you hear about some celebrity who is shown in some video and there's a deep fake AI video, it's not really them in the video, kind of like the video of Donald Trump getting mad at Anna Wintour for her keeping him out of the Met Gala. The video of Anna Wintour was a deep fake. The video of Donald Trump was a deep fake. But sometimes these deep fakes involve sex scenes. Sometimes these deep fakes involve pornography. And there are laws being passed that would say you cannot use artificial intelligence to create these sorts of videos because it is a violation of the rights of the people who need them. But the article and the conversation goes on to talk about the fact that this legislation would prevent at the state level anybody from being able to stop AI from harming the rest of us. Now, remember when Luigi, where is Luigi? Luigi on trial right now? I'm not going to make no comments about Luigi right now, but Mario Brothers was an amazing game. But what happened with Luigi? Remember, one of the reasons that people were sort of feeling the way that they felt about Luigi, and I don't own these airwaves, so y'all gonna watch me be very careful about what it is that I'm saying. But one of the reasons that people felt so in alignment with the allegations of which Luigi was connected is because United Healthcare. This is the healthcare of which the CEO who was pew-pewed and unalived in front of that right before they had their board meeting, and them board members, they went right on ahead and had that meeting. They stepped over the blood stains in that concrete and was like, what we're going to do is have this conversation about these stocks. This was United Healthcare. And one of the challenges of the reporting that came out about United Healthcare was the reporting that looked at the fact that they were employing at one point artificial intelligence that was denying claims to the tune of like 70, 80, 90%, according to the reports. Falsely. They had false negatives, false denials. And when you're hearing about all of these healthcare companies that are doing really well in terms of profits, they're releasing their profit numbers. Those profits are directly connected to the denials of your access to healthcare. And so one of the things that they're talking about is if you had a state, for example, that like California, they're trying to ban the use of insurance companies. They're trying to ban insurance companies from being able to deny you claims that would end your life. So like there was this man who was he was literally about to get on a plane to go get a lung transplant. And right as he's about to leave the hospital to get on the plane, the insurance company was like, I'm so sorry to tell you, but even though that you're about to die, and if you don't get this lung transplant, we're not going to approve your claim. Stay in the hospital and die, bitch. That's basically what the healthcare system did. And so what I don't mean to make fun of it, but that's basically how insurance companies make money, denying you claims that makes them more profitable. If your state wanted to prevent the use of artificial intelligence from being able to deny claims, then you would not be able to introduce that legislation. And remember how the artificial intelligence be hallucinating? It's kind of like when RFK Jr. decides he wants to go swimming in Schitt's Creek. Literally, the man went swimming in Schitt's Creek and took his grandchildren with him. And like and I don't know if that's where the brainworm came from. I don't know if he was returning to the brainworm source. We don't know how he got the brainworm. I don't anyway. But like when, I'm sorry. Sometimes I tell a story and then I go off on a tangent and I got to circle back and I forget how I got into tangent in the first place. All right, here we are. So when the RFK Jr., when he goes swimming in Schitt's Creek, and if he wants to go to a hospital and the hospital wants to use artificial intelligence to help them immediately determine what is happening with him, if the AI makes a mistake, if the AI hallucinates because maybe the AI was going in, here it is. If the AI is hallucinating because it's going into Schitt's Creek with him, then AI makes mistakes, and AI will sometimes like go way off on the deep end, kind of like an RFK trip, and it will go way off on the deep end and start cussing you out. Like there have been some companies that where AI gave them totally false ass information through a chat bot, and they went to court, and basically the company had to align and agree with what the chat bot said because that is your representative. AI be fucking up. But if your state wanted to legislate artificial intelligence, this ban would prevent them from doing so from now until 2035. What's going to happen between now and 2035 if this legislation is allowed to maintain this provision that will ban any state level regulations against artificial intelligence? It is going to be so firmly entrapped and encrusted and ingrained in our existing systems that regulating it and pulling AI out will be a non-motherfucking option, to quote Eva. What's that woman? Evelyn. To quote Evelyn Gonzalez. Lozado. I swear to God, I'm gonna get that woman's name right. The woman who said in Basketball Wives, you a non-motherfucking factor. Basically, our attempts at legislating artificial intelligence 10 years from now will be a non-motherfucking factor because it will be too much a part of the government and how we do things. You don't have to let this happen. You can call your elected officials and tell them don't do this. So that means get on the 5 Calls app or Google the congressperson who represents you. You've got 1 congressperson, you've got 2 state senators. Call them all, email them all, text them all. And you should be able to call, email, and text and at them on social media because you should have their contact information in your phone. That was literally the first assignment that we gave to ourselves here on the Lurie Daniel Favor Show when this show started 4 years ago. So that's what's happening with artificial intelligence. You need to call and tell them absolutely not, vote no on this legislation. Now, anybody want to take a flight out of Newark? Now, I love Newark, New Jersey. I love me some Newark, New Jersey. Shout out to the Source of Knowledge bookstore. Shout out to all the amazing things happening in Newark, New Jersey. One of the challenges, however, that is taking place with Newark, New Jersey is that because elongated Muskrat fired the head of the FAA or forced the head of the FAA to resign when he first came into office. I'm sorry, when Donald Trump technically first came into office. And then they got rid of the air traffic controllers. And then like a couple years ago during the Biden-Harris administration, Pete Buttigieg was doing everything he could except call on the name of Black Jesus. And maybe he even did because I believe he got 2 black sons. But he was calling on the name of Jesus, trying to get a vote that was going to increase and expand the number of air traffic controllers, right? Air traffic controllers are very important because air traffic controllers are the ones who make sure that your planes don't choom and crash into each other. And it's a very important thing because ever since these white men got in charge of the air traffic system, planes have been falling out the sky. Now we have to say it's white men because they made it an issue about race as it pertains to who was in those positions before. They got rid of all the blacks. Keep in mind that we've already discussed this before. Black people ain't never been behind in the cockpit when there was a commercial airline fatal crash. Like we ain't never been in one of them situations. That's only something that white men and white women have done. That's not an experience I want to claim for us. Go with God. But once you got rid of all the black people, y'all planes started falling out the sky. Maybe that's because, again, to be black and successful in these spaces, we have to be twice as good just to get to the halfway point. So by the time we get to the actual cockpit, by the time we get to the actual location, we're 4 times better than you. But when you get rid of your competition because you know they're better than you simply because of the rules that you set up that require them to compete in ways that would not be fair, that you could not last against, then basically that is what it is. So you got all these white men in charge of the planes now and they falling out the sky. And according to the report, we got a couple of things. Sean Duffy, who is the head of our transportation. Amina, can you play this loud so that the Instagram folks can hear it? I want y'all to listen to this clip. This is Sean the Ding Dong Duffy, whose only qualification was that he once served as a congressman who voted no when Pete Buttigieg and President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris were trying, and the Democrats were trying to expand the number of air traffic controllers. Sean the Ding Dong Duffy, when he was a congressman, said no. You don't need no more air traffic controllers. And now here's what Sean Duffy wants to say. Clip, Amina, let's do clip 47, please. Oh, we getting it.
And so now I think the lights are blinking, the sirens are turning, and they're saying, listen, we have to fix this, because what you see in Newark is going to happen in other places across the country. It has to be fixed. And so what we're having is some telecom issues. We're also having some glitches in our software. As the information comes in, it's overloading some of our lines and the system goes down. So I'll just tell you specifically in Newark, we believe we're going to have it up and running in short order. We're going to be able to fix that glitch, and we feel a little more comfortable about our primary line that gets the data in on radar, and our redundant line is up and working as well.
No. So what you mean it's a glitch? Why wasn't glitching under Biden? Why wasn't glitching when you had black pilots and black air traffic control? We didn't glitch. Now Glitch McConnell might be glitching, but what you mean it's glitching? What you mean it's going to spread to other airports, Sean the Ding Dong Duffy? Ain't you in charge, white man? Aren't you at the head of white Manistan in the sky? Why aren't you supposed to be automatically qualified, and aren't you deserving meritoriously simply because you're white with a penis? Isn't that supposed to be enough? What do you mean the problems are going to spread? And aren't you the same head of transportation that also improved elongated muskrat installing Starlink at airports? Starlink, which is the same company that I think was connected to the elongated muskrat rocket ship that exploded in air and was skeeting its parts all across the globe. Like, oh. So not only is this a glitch that you don't understand, Sean the Ding Dong Duffy, it is a glitch fueled by people who voted with you to say no to the expansion of the air traffic control system. And now you're telling us it's going to spread to other airports. I mean, I also want to hear from Sean the Ding Dong Duffy. This other clip, number 46, please, if you could. Oh, wait, was that the one that wasn't the one we just played. Let's hear Ding Dong Duffy as he talks about blaming somebody else for his problems. If this ain't the most white Manistan thing, let's hear it.
Listen, we've all been reporting and seeing what's happening at Newark Airport. And I think it is clear that the blame belongs with the last administration. Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden did nothing to fix the system that they knew was broken.
I don't ever like to make sweeping statements about entire groups of people. I just think that there's really something wrong when a white man who has all the power and who was participatory in denying access to the resources that the entire national airline system was going to need in order to not crash out of the sky. I just don't think you should get to vote no and then blame others. I just don't think you get to do that. Sean the Ding Dong Duffy, you can't fly. You don't know what you're doing. The only thing you are good for is showing your ass to all of us on TV when you was a young person on The Real World Boston. Like, that's it. That's all you got. And you are a white man who got rid of all the black people, and you got rid of all the other people of color, and now you ain't got nobody to blame but yourself. And passing the buck to the previous white men who were in charge when they came to you, white man to white man. Y'all speak fluent white man. They came to you, white man to white man, and said, hey, man. No, they wouldn't have said it like that. Vern, it's me, Clem. And these goddamn planes is going to fall out the sky if we don't fund them. Now, Vern, I'm going to need you to vote yes. And Vern said what? No. Vern said no. So, Sean the Ding Dong Duffy, this is solely on you. And did y'all hear the audio clip? And I don't know if it was a deep fake. We may never know if it's a deep fake if the Republicans get their way and pass this legislation. I say, can't nobody pass no regulations against deep fake. But basically, there is audio of Sean the Ding Dong Duffy acknowledging that his wife had a transferring flight into Newark and he got her another flight. I'm just saying, do that what you will, because if that ain't the biggest white Manistan thing, I don't know what it is. Finally, I want to get to these the tariffs and this. Oh, we got a few minutes left. Yes, all right. So the tariffs before we get to the end of this segment, child, and then we're gonna take some calls at 866-801-8255. So we heard yesterday that Scott Bessent was able to meet with his counterpart, Hay Lifeng, and they were based. I definitely did not pronounce his name correctly, but that was the name of the Chinese counterpart. I almost forgot to tell y'all. I'm sorry, pause on the tariffs for just a second. Sean the Ding Dong Duffy, who is in charge of our transportation, he has a plan. I almost forgot. This is so important. So important. Sean the Ding Dong Duffy has a plan to fix our air traffic control system after blaming the Bidens. After blaming Biden Harris, Sean the Ding Dong Duffy has a plan to fix the airline aviation industry. Do you want to know what the plan is called? He put so much thought into it. So much thought into it. I printed it out for you because I knew you wouldn't believe me. You know what it's called? It's called brand new air traffic control system. It's called brand new. It's the brand new air traffic control system. Why are we here? She was black enough. He thought he had a creative thought there. He did not have a creative thought. She was black enough. God damn it. We did not need to be here. But he's got a plan called the brand new air traffic control system. And basically, according to the report, there's not a whole lot of there. And I know because I printed all the pages. As you can see, front and back, there's some pictures. Oh, look, he's got a fan cooling an old radar. I mean, so, it's some pictures, it's some stuff in there. No real plan. They don't really have a person who could do it. They don't have a system in place that could do it. They may not even have the budget to do it, but they describe it's a lot of words, but it don't lead you to nothing. It ain't the plan, but it's literally called brand new air traffic control system. Oop, there goes my microphone. My microphone couldn't handle the pressure. Microphone was like, stop yelling at me. I can't help it. But basically, there's a couple pages to the plan. And the plan is they have no contractors. They have no costs affiliated with the plan. They've got no funding affiliated with the plan. They don't know who could implement the plan. They don't have an actual plan, but they have a piece of paper called brand new air traffic control system. And they're going to start it this year, according to some of the flute magician who is part of Radio Free NAFO. They're going to start this year, but there's no contractor. There's no funding. There's no numbers. It's nothing. It's much to do. It's white man to stand proof. White man to stand proof. Now, this ain't about all white men. Some of y'all are amazing, righteous members, but the rest of you got to get your people together. The same way y'all be blaming us when one of us do something wrong. You got to get your white men together because y'all are fucking it up for everybody. You really are. Okay, now I want to get to these tariffs. We got like a minute left. I just want to hone this in really quickly. To be crystal clear, I am very grateful that we are no longer going to have 145% tariffs on products coming in from China because I buy a lot of things and most of my things are made in China, as it is for everybody. But they lowered the tariffs down to 30%, which means that prices are still going to rise 30% higher than we are typically accustomed to seeing them. In addition to the fact that we now have this trade deal or a pause, there's this 90-day pause, which means that technically the tariffs could go back up because it's just a pause and it depends on how Donald Trump is feeling in the moment, who he's speaking to before he gets on Truth Social. But basically, according to this pause, the Americans got absolutely nothing in return. Now, granted, everybody lowered their tariffs. So the Americans lowered their tariffs from 145 down to 30%. China lowered theirs from 125 down to 10% or something of that nature. But basically, we still paying tariffs, paying taxes more than what we were paying before. And nobody is moving their manufacturing back to the United States. Not a single person. This 90-day pause is very uncertain. As we talked about yesterday, in the 90 days in the 100 days since Trump's administration began, the second one, the Chinese have been doing everything they could to build on the successes from their first Trump administration, where basically they are trying to make their entire supply chain American neutral, meaning they ain't gonna need nothing from us. Never. Give them another 90 days, and I suspect that they will actually meet that point. And Trump ain't got no more leverage. He ain't got no more leverage. So as I said earlier, which I thought was a pretty funny joke, when he told Volodymyr Zelensky out of Ukraine, you don't have any cards to play in this debate between Ukraine and Russia. Basically, Trump, as it pertains to these worldwide global tariffs, because now the entire world done seen his orange ass, diapered or not. But now that the entire world done seen his ass, he ain't got no leverage. Which means when he told Volodymyr Zelensky, you ain't got no cards, I can imagine the Chinese telling Donald Trump, not only do you not have any cards, but the cards that you did have were also made in China. Final thing, where are the protesters? Gaza is on the verge of a full-blown famine, according to the United Nations. The assessment from the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification warned that nearly every civilian in Gaza, 93% of the population, nearly 2 million people, is being pushed closer to the edge of famine. This ranges from conditions if categories as in crisis to catastrophic, which is the final stage before famine. Currently, over 244,000 people are already in a food catastrophe. Where are the protesters? Was this vote worth it for you? Now that they're about to build Palestine Riviera, Trump version, where are the protesters? Y'all did a whole lot. Well, I don't even see y'all no more. but we got all of this happening. Thanks in part to you. God bless. We got to go to commercial break. Much more to come. 866-801-8255. We'll be right back after this.